Right, so I wanted to provide everyone who couldn't make it to the roundtable last Tuesday an opportunity to see the slides and see what we talked about. It was a good group, we had good interaction, and I think everybody walked out with a pretty good plan of what they were going to do for next year. So I started by talking about an economist that I'd heard speak about how the economy was supposed to grow about 2.5% next year, the U.S. economy. So how that translates to you is that basically if you want your business to grow more than 2.5%, then you're either going to have to take it out of your competition's hide or you're going to have to merge with someone. And so we started with that premises. And so obviously if you're going to grow more than 2.5%, then you're going to have a good plan and implement it appropriately. We went around the room, everybody introduced themselves, and we talked about what their growth strategy or what their growth idea was for next year and how much they thought they'd grow. And everyone, to a person, was north of 2.5%. We had some as high as 100%, a lot of 50, 60% growth, 20, 30% growth, but nobody was satisfied with the 2.5% that the economy was supposed to grow. You should have gotten the training needs analysis survey if you're a member of Mindshop, and this is the summation of that. Basically, the very similar results to 2013. The number one training need was strategy development ability. Key for 2014 business theme was growth, which is why we're doing the growth strategy first thing. Highest competency was problem solver, and lowest competency was early adopter of technology. Key opportunity for 2014 was growing in existing markets or new markets. We talked a little bit about the website. It continues to be improved, and it gets better and better every year. There's a new release coming out June 14, and that should make it even more user-friendly. If you're not using the website, I would encourage you to do so. It's very powerful. A lot of training modules on there, a lot of problem-solving tools, and good for facilitating workshops or internal improvement initiatives. We talked about the agenda, and we started with how we feel about ourselves. How are our leadership skills honed, and are we ready to run a high-performance organization? Then we started to talk about, next we're going to talk about where our business may be in terms of its growth cycle. Then we were going to look at some maybe potential opportunities within markets or existing markets or new markets. And finally, we wanted to put a plan together for our strategy for 2014. And we also talked about, you've heard me say this before, there's no point in putting more sales to an incapable system. So we talked about how our business may be ready for rapid growth. And if not, then maybe that's the place we start. Our growth should be in our capacity to grow. We went around the room, introduced ourselves, as we said before, and talked about what our growth strategy was. So let's talk about our own leadership skills and where they may be. Quick leadership diagnostic. We did this really quick exercise to see where we may stack up in terms of our track record of results, ability to motivate those around us, clarity of vision, ability to coach our people, our business acumen, how good we were at that, tenacity and energy, ability to communicate effectively, implementation skills, confidence levels, and life balance. And so we talked about that and where we may have some gaps in any of these 10 areas. If you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you need to improve in your ability to lead an organization? And there's no shame. No one can be really good at all these things. And so if there is an area where you're weak, then you probably need to have a lieutenant or someone in there that has the ability to shore you up and shore up your organization in that area. So real quickly, we went through this just to see if there were any gaps that we needed to address and think about where we could improve ourselves to be ready to run a high-performance organization. So we talked about bridging the growth gap, where your organization may be in its growth cycle, and try to anticipate where you may run into some issues and what typically companies run into as they grow. So if you look at our bridging the growth gap on this visual here, you see when a company is young and small down at the bottom left-hand corner, as you go to the right, looking at the age of the organization, as you go up the left side, the size of the organization. So typically when we see a small company working with I've worked with a lot of those out of the Houston Technology Center. They're very entrepreneurial. They're very creative. They're having a good time. They're just really enjoying being in business for themselves. They disdain anything managerial. They really have no time for financial statements or strategy or business plans. They're just developing their product and trying to identify markets for that product. And so at some point, as you grow and mature, someone needs to emerge as a leader. There needs to be some leadership in that organization to achieve its goals. And so you have a crisis of leadership. And that is responded to by direction. So if you look at phase 2, to cure the crisis of leadership, phase 2 is a phase of direction. And as you have a strong leader that gives the organization direction and takes it to the next level, the next crisis you'll run into is a crisis of autonomy. People want autonomy. They don't want to be micromanaged, especially bright, capable people. And so that moves into phase 3. The management style is delegation. So we will delegate, try to maintain some communication, but ultimately the next crisis that comes along is a crisis of control. And notice as we're moving up the spectrum, we're getting the age of the organization is advancing, as is the size. And so you can kind of see how this works. The crisis of control is addressed by phase 4, coordination and monitoring. And so as we get better at coordinating and monitoring and key performance indicators, ultimately we'll get to a crisis of red tape. And that will tend to slow the organization's growth down. So the next phase would be collaboration, which ultimately leads to a crisis of internal growth. So there's no absolute here. This is a very simplistic model, but as we went around the room, a lot of folks in the organization could identify with this in their own organizations. Many could see where they, as starting, growing company, they may have a crisis of leadership, and that as some organizations had started to had a good leader in place, and they continue to grow, people wanted more autonomy. So people could relate to this. It did tend to make sense. But again, we're looking for where your organization may be and what may be keeping you from going to that next level of performance and growth. So we talked about this from the Blue Ocean Strategy, discovering new growth opportunities. If you've not read Blue Ocean Strategies, I'd recommend you do. It's really a great book, and trying to find an area in your industry where there's blue water, blue ocean. No one's there yet, as opposed to being in the bloody waters of a lot of competition where price continues to get squeezed, margins get squeezed, and it becomes a volume game. So we had several examples. One here locally is Mattress Mac. Jim McInville with Gallery Furniture is a good example where things that need to be reduced in the industry, he completely reduced the idea of a back order slip and waiting for your furniture. And that was really his competitive advantage, and he played that very well. He raised the service level, he raised the variety level. You could go to his organization and see where he had a lot of variety of product and services. And so to identify where in your organization you may be able to trigger these new growth opportunities, look for areas in your industry where things should be completely eliminated. What could you eliminate that would be in your that you frequently competed against in your industry. And so I use the example for my business as a CPA that what if I eliminated the monthly billing and that all clients were on a retainer basis for the year? They paid 1/12 of what they were going to pay us for the full year. That would be something that our industry has long since held dear to us, that we bill our time and we collect it. But typically, our long-term clients know what we're going to charge them. They know what they're going to pay us, and so why not have that on a retainer basis where they don't get a big bill every so often? It eliminates the fear of picking up the phone and calling us and wondering whether you're going to get a bill a few days later. So look for areas in your industry where you could completely eliminate things that you have been competing against. Factors that you could reduce well beyond the industry standard. The example I used was Mattress Mac. And where you could raise factors well above the industry standards, or create factors that should have been created in the industry and never offered. Another example we talked about was Cirque du Soleil. Very difficult business in the circus business. A lot of animals and people. You're traveling from city to city. Logistics was very complicated, very expensive. Someone had to go out in front of the organization and make sure that everybody was aware in the city that you were coming. And so it was just, so Cirque du Soleil changed that. They said, well, we're not going to have animals in our show. We're going to have acrobatics, and we're going to have a theme, and people are going to come to us. And so if you've been to Vegas, you know that just about all the major casinos have a Cirque du Soleil program of some type. And they're very successful. And so, again, within a old industry, someone came up with a new idea, a new way of presenting this, and has been very successful with it. So again, we're looking for areas of growth opportunities that you may be able to implement that will set you apart from your competition in the industry. We used another example of yellowtail wine. And I asked for the show of hands how many people had drank yellowtail wine. Several had. And I asked honestly how many of them had bought it because of the label, because it looked kind of interesting the first time they drank it. And several people raised their hand. It was very interesting. These guys, the thing that they raised above industry standard was the price. The price was a little bit higher than budget wines. It wasn't as much as the higher premium wines. They eliminated what they call above-the-line marketing and aging quality, vineyard prestige. They reduced that, and winery complexity and all the snobbery around wine. And they created something kind of fun and adventurous and easy to select. And so you notice these aren't huge moves, but so we don't have to think that we have to do something as dramatic as Mattress Mag did or Cirque du Soleil. Just think about areas where you can kind of tweak it a little bit and get the results that you're looking for. All right, so then we went through the exercise, and everybody worked for about 20 or 30 minutes on how try to identify some areas where they could eliminate, reduce, raise, or create in their industry to raise the growth opportunity for them. So we wanted to talk about an example of someone who has had rapid growth. This is an organization out of Australia. This has grown from 48 million in 2009-2010 to 155 million in 2012-2013. It's an incredible growth. And so what did he learn? What were some of the tips? And the tips were to cut the complexity that builds up in your business as it grows. A lot of times we want to add a person, we want to add a form, we want to add a process or procedure when really it's not necessary. And so he warned about keeping it simple. Have a clear strategy around your competitive advantage, which is very important. Have everybody understand the company's vision and goal. We had a discussion about that a lot of companies we don't know. You may set your vision and your goals, and you may know what it is, but throughout the organization, not everybody knows that. Use trusted mentors to help hone the business. Provide your good people autonomy to make decisions. And just because you're bigger, don't lose the essence of what has made you successful. The flat structure, entrepreneurial spirit, and that sort of thing. And don't just copy. This was a very interesting statement I thought he made. Don't just copy other businesses' approaches because they are seen as best practices, as you may in turn end up being average. Very interesting statement. A lot of us use industry standards. We like to see how we rate relative to our competition, and if we fall within a range of our competition, we seem to be happy with that, when really we should be looking for ways that we're well beyond our competition and not just average with our competition. So the next we moved on to trying to get more business through an incapable system. It's and this visual here is a good example of that. So how do we keep from doing that? Where do we see our ability to identify areas that we need to change? And so again, this was the European Foundation for Quality Management put this out several years ago, and when a lot of organizations kind of signed up and rated themselves. So we look for things that enable us to grow. What in our organization will enable us to take our business to the next level? And you'll notice the enablers are 50% and the results are 50%. So 10% of the 50% is leadership. You notice leadership and processes were a significant portion of the enablers. You have to have leadership in your organization. You have good processes and products. People was another good example. We've got to get the right people in the organization and doing the right things. This is strategy and policies. I know it says politics, but it's strategy and policies. We have to have strong strategy and policies to enable us to grow. And partnerships with vendors, with service providers that work for us. And some of our best clients don't just see us as the guys that come in and do the tax return or do a financial statement. They really try to use us for our network and for the other services that we can provide for them, Mindshop being one of them. So then the other is results. We want to be able to measure the results of our people, measure our customers' results. Are they satisfied? Or do we know we do any customer surveys to find out if our customers are happy with what we're doing, if there's some services that we should be offering that they don't have? Are we in society? Are we good corporate citizens? Do we have a good reputation in the industry? We talked about BP and the explosion they had in the Gulf. While that was a terrible thing, certainly BP sprung to action and did what they could to minimize the damage, and I think in the long run came out ahead in their reputation fairly unscathed from that. Last is key performance results. Certainly we need to find key performance indicators in our business. They're different for every business, but there are certain things that drive our revenue and profitability. Every company has a few of them that we really should be tracking on a regular basis. So again, we're looking at enablers and how we measure results of our people, customers, society, and key performance indicators to get the growth that we're looking for. So we weighed these on a scale of out of 1,000, and the exercise that we worked on then was trying to figure out where we may have some gaps. Is our leadership where it needs to be? Our people, policies. So if leadership was strong, obviously you had a 90, 95 out of 100, then you probably had pretty good leadership. And so on and so forth. We went through and did that exercise. We had a quick break, and then we did rapid strategy development. So of everything we had talked about throughout the day, whether it was our personal leadership style, whether it was where the organization was in terms of its growth and maybe crisis it's running into, to where there may be areas that we can create a new market within our own industries, as in blue ocean strategy theory, then or whether we had issues getting trying to put more sales through an incapable system. Wherever we had our top 3 issues and opportunities, we then started putting together a plan for what we were going to do over the next 90 days until we met again in June to address that. And so what could we do? What 3 things? And we don't want to try to overload ourselves or try to do too much, because we still have a business to run but we do want to try to fix 2 or 3 things a quarter in our business. And if we do that, by the end of the year, we've fixed anywhere from 8 to 12 issues in our business, and we're much better off by the end of the year. And so we worked on getting a prioritizing 3 opportunities that we were going to work on for the next 3 months. Then last we talked about the one thing, and this was just a focus time. We wanted to talk a little bit about how we could, this was a book that was written recently, and we talked about how we could clear our plate a little bit. I talk a lot about this with my clients. Where can you find opportunities to eliminate some of the things that you do or delegate some of the things that you do, so we can focus on that 20% of what we do that adds 80% of the value to our organization? Certainly you're not going to be able to get rid of all of it, but to the extent you can move from a typical day where you work on what really advances your organization or you personally for a fraction of the day, to where we can spend half a day at least doing what those highest and best uses of our time, where we can add the most value to our organization. We went through a summary of what we talked about, some of the growth opportunities, and some of the exercises we went through, and we concluded. The next workshop will be June 3rd. And so I thank you again for your attention. And as I said before, if you'd like for me to give this presentation at your office, I'll be happy to do so, and we can get the exercises in place and maybe get some improvement initiatives. Good luck to you. Thank you.